Hello, I'm Jenny. Welcome to my channel where we focus on using ordinary materials to make beautiful things. So today I wanted to show you something that I found that I just couldn't resist. I picked it up for, I think it was $2 at Goodwill. And it's a children's board book, but it's really cool. Not only is the size unusual for a board book, but every one of the pages has these flip outs. So I thought it would be really fun to turn this into a junk journal. This one's a little torn, but that's okay. We can fix it. Now, board books are not constructed the way other books are because A, they're really heavy, kind of cardboard, and they're put together in a way that they're just kind of glued. So let me see if I can show you. You can see how the binding here is just glued together. These things are glued if you open it up. Each set of pages is glued together. So this one is glued to this one and it's holding it. So you can see right here where they go together this way. I'm not sure I'll be able to take the pages apart like that, like here, but I can cut them apart this way. So my thought is, what I really love about it is I love the flip outs. So my thought is I would like to save as many of the flip outs as I can and use those with junk journal pages between them. And this is a pretty large book, so the junk journal pages would be pretty tall. And then we'd have these cool fold outs. And so my thought was I would try to figure out how to reattach them with signatures between, because right now if you put something between there, you're just gonna end up with a gator mouth like this. It's not gonna be flat. You won't be able to close it. So I think we need to start by taking the book apart. And then I think because it's all shiny, it needs to be gessoed. It needs to be gessoed out so that glue will stick to it and fabric and paper and things like that. So I just thought this was really cool. I have, and we can, fix some of these things with some tape and glue and fabric and things like that. I have done a few board books where I altered the book. I carved out things, I put stuff in, that sort of thing. I've done several of those. And I used to, maybe about 5 years ago, I was kind of on a kick with upcycling board books into art books. So they became like a mini art piece. But this is different. This was before I started junk journaling. And I'm really, really interested in figuring out how to take this apart and put it back together. So my initial thought is the pieces are a part that I would attach fabric to the ends and then bind that somehow with the paper. So that's kind of where we are. So this project is going to be fairly lengthy, I think. So my thought was I would take you along for the ride of each of the steps. You won't necessarily see, I think it might be easier if I set it down. You won't necessarily see every page getting done, but you will see what I do to the pages. Yeah. So what I mean is today I'm going to cut it apart and I'll gesso a page or two, and then I'll turn off the camera and I'll gesso the rest of the pages, because you don't need to watch me gesso a bazillion pages. That's not too interesting. And I'm not sure if I can take these off the cover. If I can't remove these from the cover because they are glued on. My thought is if I can't remove those from the cover, I'll save that cover and use it in another project and use the interior for this project. Of course, I did manage to cut through it a little bit, which is why you should probably stand it up instead of laying it down. So that's kind of my thought, is maybe this is a twofer, right? It's a twofer thing. I get the cover in one project and the innards in another, right? So that's kind of my thought, is that the cover then, the binding was already tearing, so I've cut through a little bit here, but it already had holes in it. The book has been used and loved. But if I reinforce that, or just cut the covers off and use the covers on just a regular junk journal, that would give me a really cool hard cover with a nifty flip out. So I'm thinking that might be another project whereas the interior pieces might be a project in and of themselves. So, yeah. It's kind of just all coming apart here. Let's see, where are the pages? Okay. So, yeah. Okay, so there's one that, has flip outs. So my thought then is that I would attach fabric to this part of it to create something that I can bind through. And I'm thinking I might attach fabric here and put a signature in between and sew the signature in. And then attach fabric and sew in a signature, and attach fabric and sew in a signature. So I've got a plan. There's actually a method to my madness at this point. So this video, as I said, will be shot in stages. So I've told you the plan. And I'm just going to cut the book apart and gesso a page or two to get us started. And then I will helps if you cut straight. Then I will shut off the video and just keep kind of doing the same thing until I'm ready to do the next thing. There we go. Okay. So hopefully my plan will work. Sometimes you think something's going to work and then it doesn't, but that's okay. If it doesn't, we'll solve that when we get to it. Okay. So we're just gonna, as I said, I'm just gonna kind of gesso out the pages. I just have some Studio Acrylic Gesso, but I am gonna mix it with a little bit of acrylic paint so it's not so white. I know gesso comes in colors and it's supposed to be white, although it comes in clear and black and things like that too. But my thought was that if I mixed it with some paint, I would kind of get a base layer of color on there too. And since I think everything is better with gold, that's what I'm going to start with. So this is just, let's see, it's Monaco Fine Art Acrylic Paint. My husband kindly bought me a set of paint when we were out after Christmas. So I have these kind of inexpensive little chip brushes that I use for gessoing things. And then this is just a little upcycled tray from, it's not really even upcycled, I guess. Recycled. It's a recycled tray from some appetizers. So, I don't want to use too much stuff that's too precious. A little more gold. That's kind of nice. My handy dandy mixer. So I'll just leave that in there. So I'm sure it's going to take a couple of coats to gesso out everything, but that's part of the reason too that I wanted to, oh, I should have put some paper down. I'm going to get paint on my table. Move that up. There we go. That's part of the reason too that I added a little color. It's because I feel like that helps cover a little bit. And maybe it won't take quite so much. When I used to do board books for when I, upcycled them into art pieces, it would take probably a good 3 or 4 coats of gesso to actually get rid of everything. So I'm thinking here that since it's a junk journal and we're gonna cover it with stuff anyway, that 1 or 2 coats should be sufficient if we get enough, if we get a little color on there with the kind of gold. Although I'm not sure, I chose that metallic and then I put it with a flat white, so that's probably gonna undo the metallic, but we'll see how it looks when it dries. I like the gold color, so it's kind of a sandy, kind of gives it a sandy color, I think. So it's kind of a nice base. It's just a neutral base. And then I'm thinking too that I might go in with some inks and just kind of smush it around. Just getting that all over there. Just kind of smush it around and give it a base of color to help cover up the background. So as you can see, this is going to take a little while because I need to either dry this with my heat gun or let it dry before I turn the page and do the other side. But the good news is the board books are really heavy, so they tend not to buckle as much. This one is moving a little bit, because it's wet. But otherwise, it should dry relatively flat. Okay, so I'm gonna turn off the camera now and keep working on this, and I will turn it back on when I'm ready to move on to the next step. Okay, so I'm back. It's the next day. I have gessoed all of the pieces, all of the sides. But before I start putting them together, I would still like to do some more painting on the background so that there is a base to work on where I'm still not seeing the kids' book through there. I like the graphics, but I don't really want them to show. It's not really what I'm after. I'm thinking I'm going to do either a 4 seasons kind of thing or maybe a gardening book. So I don't really want to see those in the background. Yesterday, after scrubbing gesso out from under my fingernails for quite a while, I decided that I should probably put on some gloves. So my thought is I would like to, knowing that I'm going to start with either something seasonal or garden, I want something that's fairly neutral. So I'm just going to sponge on some paint in different colors. So I have this kind of nice foresty green. Then I have kind of this yellowy green. It does look yellow next to the green, but next to the yellow it looks green. So that's kind of a good transitional color, I think. And then this brown. So these things seem like colors that appear in nature a lot. So they feel like something that would be a good choice. So I haven't even opened some of these, and I'll bet I can't get that off with a glove on. Oh look, it came off. What do you know? Shockers. Oh, we'll just say I'm gonna waste that paint over there. See, I've already got paint all over my glove. Okay. All right. So I'm just gonna drip a little bit on and just use a sponge, and kind of sponge around, and then I'm gonna add some of the other colors So just like with the gessoing, I don't think you probably don't need to watch me do this to every page. So I'm going to show you one, and then I will turn the camera off and do the others and come back when I have done with that one. Haven't opened this one either. Only this time I'm going to be smart and put the brown on there instead of over here. So, and I'm just kind of blobbing it around. I am not after anything more than just a little more background to cover up the graphics that are there. I brought along some metallics too, so I think I might put some metallics on. Gold, silver. I think I have kind of a coppery color. Just to kind of brighten it up a little bit. And besides, I don't think you can ever have too much metallic anything, so I'm always happy with gold and things like that. Okay, let's throw a little bit of this yellowy green. Haven't used that one either. And again, I'm just looking for some background colors in nature, and then of course the metallics would just, you know, add a little bling, because I don't do anything that doesn't have a little bit of bling in it. Oops, I think you're probably hearing my husband's cell phone in the background. And, you know, this will get covered up with other things, but I just, in case something doesn't get covered or parts of it are still open or we like it and we want to see parts of it, I don't want to have to cover every inch of something, because you can still see the kids' graphics through. And, you know, this is definitely not a new book. This is definitely not a vintage book. This is a new book. Newer anyway, modern. I mean, it looks like it was well loved. There are some tears, and I did get it at Goodwill. It was used. It's not brand new, because I don't want to use something that's brand new. I like to use something that might get thrown away. So I was talking to the lady at Goodwill, and she said she always likes it when people buy books, because they get so many books donated that after a while they have to throw them away too. See, I'm liking that. It's kind of very foresty looking, I think. So let's maybe hit it with some copper, just to be interesting. So, you know, you don't think about Goodwill throwing things away, but apparently they have to sometimes. So I told her that I was buying some of the books to cut them up. At first she was sad, and then we talked about how you're giving it a new life, that it's destined for the trash can or the shredder somewhere. And so if I can cut it up and make something else out of it, it gets to live on. But that's pretty. See, I like that. With the copper. You can still see a little bit of the tan with the gesso through there. Might just hit the edges. I had mixed a little bit of that gold with the gesso, and of course the gesso is flat, so it just kind of flattened out the metallic, so it's okay if we lose some of that. But right now I just want to see a background that looks like something I could put anything on, and that looks like a good choice. So that's what I'm going to do to all of the pages. I'm obviously going to have to let this one dry before I can flip it and do the other side, and then flip it again and do the back. So it's going to take a little while. So I'm going to turn off the camera and do all of them in generally this way with these colors. I might do a couple with silver or gold instead of copper. I'm not really sure. Really like the copper though. So that's kind of where we're going with this. So when I have finished this and it's all dry, I will be back to show you the next step. Okay, so I'm back because I decided I don't want to paint them all like this. I did paint each of the spreads that turns this way in this color, but I thought, you know, there's basically three sides to paint. So rather than paint them all in the same colors, I'm going to use some different colors on each of the sides. So I thought this side I would do blues and kind of a different shade of green. So it's a different shade of green, a little more watery, aqua-y, and some blue. But to marry them, I'm going to keep the same kind of greeny yellow. And that way, if you see some of it when you turn the page, although this is going to be on the back, so you won't on this one. But to marry them together, to keep the colors together, I'm going to use that same yellow with the blue and green. So I thought we'd do a page of that color, and then I'll do all of those, and then I'll decide on the third color combination and come back and show you those. So let's just start with some brighter blue. I really like the others, but they're looking really very fall. And if I decide to do Four Seasons or garden, then I want to be sure I have some other things in here too. So the other thought was I could do something that's more elemental, you know, earth, fire, air, and water. And so this will probably look a little more watery by the time we're done. You can see I've got a little bit of the yellow still on my sponge, and it's already making a little green with the blues and the greens. And then it'll just be a question of whether or not we do blues and whites for the other one, the other spread, or if we pick up reds and oranges to make fire. Maybe we'll do some of both since they're going to be singles on top. Maybe we can do half and half. That would be kind of cool. So I still want things that are what I would consider, you know, colors from nature, right? Blues, greens, yellows. This still fits in with that. So if I decide to do garden something, it's still definitely that feeling. It'll still work for that. But maybe I can add in water gardens or something that has to do with water. So I'm not really sure. So you can see I'm kind of changing my mind as I go, but that's part of what happens with creating something is you do part of it and it inspires you to think of something else. So just want to marry a little bit of that yellow around just so it kind of, you know, continues to go with the other. And besides, it kind of goes with that blue and stuff and makes it a little more green. Right. And I still want to see the blue, but I like it when it kind of blends in and becomes something different. So I'm still looking just for background things that I can put something on top of. I can't imagine a world where, you know, blues and greens and yellows don't go with pretty much anything I'd want to put on top of it. So not super bright, more muted. And then looks like a beautiful pond, doesn't it? And then for the metallic on this one, I'm going to use a little bit of silver. I don't have very much silver left, so I hope I have enough to get through all of them. I might have to dig around and find some more. I don't know if I have any or not, but it won't take very much, just a little. So just a couple dollops on each one should do it. And it's kind of a big dollop, isn't it? Put my fingerprints over here. Just to give it a little reflectiveness. I'd have some more silver in there. If we blend it, I want to see the reflectiveness, but I don't want it to be all silver. I want it to just kind of show up a little bit. Give it a little light. Okay. All right, so that's our side of this. Let's see. Turn the light there. See a little bit of that silver. I love a little bit of yellow. It reminds me of some of the colors you see in Monet paintings. I love those colors with the ponds and the flowers and everything. Yummy. Okay, so I'm going to do a set of this color on all of the other ones, and then I will choose 3 colors for the other side, and I'll come back and show you those as well. Okay, I'm back. I have done 2 sides. So this was the first side that had the dark greens and the copper. And then this side, we did a brighter green, some blue. We added in a little bit of that yellow to make it merry and some silver. And then we have this side left. And I've decided that I do want to do it in 2 different colors. So when the binding is in, the binding will be here. So this will flip open to see the green here. So I want something more blue. So I'm going to do a blue and a white on this side. And then on this side, this will flip and you'll be able to see the edge. So I'm going to do some of the reds here. So I'm just going to mask off a little bit. I'll just put a piece of paper along the edge here to protect while I do this one. All right, so this will be the side that is reds. Maybe it's sort of red and orange because it kind of, I feel like it goes with the darker with the golds and the greens here. So I have kind of a darker red we're going to start with. And I haven't cleaned the sponge. I'm just kind of letting it, if we pull in a little bit from something else, that's okay too. And if we get a little bit, although I don't know, maybe I should put something there to mask that edge as well. Grab another piece of paper. This is just packing paper. So makes a good table protection and masker. Yeah, let me grab another piece to put under the edge. Should have thought of that. So we'll just put it there so we don't get it on our green. Not that it would be terrible if we did, but okay. And then I have a little bit of orange, kind of a darker, if I can get it to come out, a little bit darker orange, not a bright orange, just a little darker one. These paints don't have the color on them, so you just kind of have to eyeball it. It was just a set that I got at a discount store. My husband and I were there, and I liked them, and he was like, oh, I'll just buy them for you, which is nice, because frequently I look at things and go, oh, I don't really need that, you know. So it's nice when someone else decides to give it to you, whether you need it or not. Okay, and then I'm gonna use some more of that same kind of greeny yellow that we saw in both of the other spreads to kind of keep marrying these together. Just wanna hold on to that. I decided I had to do something with some red and orange in it because I really just love red and orange. Blues and purples and things are my favorite colors, but I do gravitate towards many of the warmer colors too. Love those colors of fall. So I thought maybe it would kind of feel like that, and it would be a nice contrast to that green. I was thinking at first the other green kind of felt fallish, and it sort of does, but I think it feels more more like the early fall, the depth of summer, just when the things are at their greenest, their darkest. Okay, if I can't get trying to get this gold to come out. Oh, there we go. And so I thought this would be a nice juxtaposition to that with the oranges. Okay. I guess I moved that around, sorry. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side. I don't have anything under that. So I don't really want to, I'm trying not to, get on this too much because it's wet. How much paint we're gonna pull up. Maybe it's okay if we pull up a little paint. That might be okay. So this side, I'm going to use the same blue I used, but rather than adding greens and yellows, I'm just going to add some white and maybe a little bit of that gold, just so that there's a little metallic as well. I just want to keep this one a little lighter, a little more sky looking, as opposed to the blues and greens of the water. The other ones look kind of like a pond. So I thought this would be better if it looked more sky-like. And right now I'm very glad that I have on gloves, because my sponge is just covered in paint. Might need a little more white. I don't know, maybe not. I'm just looking for something that looks more sky and cloud-like. might be a little dark, maybe just a little more of the white. I'm liking that better. Oh yeah, I like that much better. I don't know, should we put any of the gold on it? It's hard to resist, isn't it? Just a little metallic. Just a little bit. Not very much. Just maybe to get that sparkle of sunlight. Maybe I should have put the metallic on before the white. Okay. Let's see how badly it's stuck over here. Oh, just on the edge. I can flip it back to the other side maybe and go back on that edge. She says getting a little bit of blue. Okay, might have to do these separately. I'm thinking I'm gonna have to do one side and then the other so I don't have to cover it. But you get the idea. That's what's gonna happen to the other ones. So when we see this kind of reddy goldy, we're gonna see this kind of green gold behind it. And then on the other side, we'll see the brighter blue-green. So I will take care of those. That will be all dry next time I see you. Okay, so I'm back. We have everything painted now. So we have that kind of more sky blue with the white in it. We have the lighter green. We have kind of the golden green. And then we have that red orange. So those are kind of the backgrounds that I put in. So I was looking at them, and partially because I've opened and closed them so many times, and partially because they were wet, it looks to me like we're getting a little iffy on some of them. You can see maybe needs a little reinforcement. So, oh, so sorry, my cat just jumped up on something. So my thought was that I would just kind of reinforce these edges so that when I bind them later, because we're going to bind on this end, so this edge won't get reinforced unless we do something about it. So I thought I would reinforce them with a little bit of fabric. This is some cheesecloth that I have just kind of tie-dyed with India inks that I have. I have pieces of it. Here's a bigger piece that you can see. So I just dyed it and then heat set it with an iron. And then I discovered that I really should have put some paper towels between this and the iron because I got ink on the iron. Then I had to scrub the iron after it was cold. So that was maybe a live and learn situation. But anyway, I really like this, and it does kind of go with this side. And I realize that it's going to go a little over on this side too. But I also think that it's okay if it's, you know, a little contrast there on the edge. It'll just add to the interestingness of it, I think. It is a junk journal, so it is meant to be, you know, just made out of stuff. So let's see. Got a little bit of an edge there that's turned down. So maybe we'll put it about about there. And just kind of smooth it down. And I'm going to reinforce all of the edges. So I'm using Art Glitter Glue Fabric Adhesive. You could use Fabrifix. That would probably work really well. I have messed up my metal tip, so I'm kind of just winging it with the regular tip here. Finger tool's always good. Right. So we're just gonna put a little cheesecloth on there. Just kind of smush it down. May need a little more glue just because that edge. And like I said, I think it's just gonna add to the interestingness of it. Okay, we'll just do the same thing on the other side. Guess I better smooth that out a little bit. It'd help. I have tools and things, but generally I find that my finger works better than most things I have. So really just want to wrap it. And when I cut the fabric, I just kind of eyeballed it, so it's not necessarily exactly straight. But again, I think that's okay because we're gonna build journaling stuff on top of it, so it'll just make an interesting something over to the side that we can look at. Okay, so I'm gonna let that dry before I start opening it and opening and closing it, but it should reinforce the hinge enough. When I looked at the insides didn't look like they were coming apart as much as the outside did, and it probably had some wear and tear from whatever child had it before I did. So I think this just seems like a good way to reinforce it. So I'm going to reinforce all of those and let those dry, and then I think we're ready probably to put them together with some paper and create some signatures. So we're almost done with the structure part of it. So hang in there, I will be back in a little while. Hi guys, I'm back with a quick update. It's the next day, and I wanted to show you these are all completely dry, and I've made some signatures to put into the journal. I didn't film that part because at this, I figure you probably know how to make a signature. If not, there are certainly many ways to go about it. I will show you how I did mine really quickly if you want to do it that way. So I just wanted to show you these are all dry. So we've got the reinforced here. We've got that reinforcement, which is the outer edge. So when we're flipping through our book, this is the edge we'll see with the signatures in between, which I think is going to look pretty cool. And I like the idea of seeing this, and this will continue to protect the edges of those fold outs in that book. So we've got the fold out. So we've got the green on this side, and then we'll turn the page this way and you'll see the kind of orangey gold and the darker green. And you can see I've reinforced the outside, and this is one of the places where there was a tear on the inside. So I may need to reinforce that as well. Actually, I'm just flipping through them. I think it'll be okay with the reinforcement on the outside. Maybe I'll just leave that when we decorate. I'll put something over that to reinforce it, because I'm pretty sure this will hold it together and it'll be okay. But there were several tears, and this is one of them that I wanted to make sure the book held together, because it is a board book and it is just kind of a hinge with paper. Okay, so that's how those all look. So there's 5 of those. So there'll be 4 signatures between. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4 in between. So the signatures, I just culled through some of my papers and put them together. I sewed them on my sewing machine. I just sewed them straight down the middle. You could do a 3-hole pamphlet stitch if you wanted to. However you wanted to put them together is fine. I went ahead and sewed them because I'm going to sew them again to help put them into a book with these. So I'm going to show you how that's going to work in a second. But we'll just flip through. Each of these signatures has papers that are either the same or similar to what's in this one. So it's 4 of the same kinds of things. There's some paper here. Whenever I have paper that's plain on the back, I usually just throw some paint at it or use it as, you know, to clean off my roller and stuff. So you'll see on here, these things have like golds and greens and grays and things like that on them because I think those are pretty neutral. So there's some paint spatter on the front. This is a dyed piece of paper. I did the dyeing on this with watercolor and a stencil. So I put the stencil over it and I spritzed the watercolor through. And I was just careful not to get it too wet so that it didn't leak too much under it. So that's how that was done. This is another piece of paper where the back was just plain. It's got rolled off paint on it. There's a map page. There is a piece of music paper. There is a piece of craft paper that's just got paint on one side, a lot of gray. And then this was spattered on the other side. You can see there's some paint there, but it was printed. When I have things that are just plain, kind of, I'd usually just throw some paint on them so that they're not so plain. Here's another piece of a map. This is from a much older book. I think this first one was from like the 1990s, and it's pretty glossy, maybe the early 2000s. This one is from 1962, so the paper is quite a bit different weight. This is just scrapbook paper. So again, the back was plain, so I threw some paint on it, and then it just, you know, spattered the front. Another piece of scrapbook paper. So I have a lot of old scrapbook paper, and this kind of stuff is things that sometimes you buy packs of paper at Goodwill, and it comes in there. So they're not necessarily things that I bought the paper itself, but it was maybe given to me or it was in a pack with something else. And when a lot of times the back side is blank and I just don't like all that plain white. So this is a junk journal. So I try to put things in, and oh my gosh, I've got paint all over my hands. I've been painting all day, so oh well. So this is a junk journal, so it's things that would have been, you know, kind of junky. So stuff that I got from Goodwill or would have been thrown away and things. Here's just the other side of that, so you can see how it goes. Right, so it flips through, and I like seeing different things. So some of them are higher, some are lower, so that you can see when on this page you can see this one and here. So I don't mind seeing all of that. The other signatures are very similar. Some of the scrapbook paper is different. This one has a paper bag. I did just a small piece on one side and a bigger one on the other, so I have a larger space to work with here and a small space here, which would be fun to, you know, put some things on, maybe tuck them into here, like glue some stuff here that we can flip, that kind of stuff. So that might be fun. So again, there's scrapbook paper, but you can see it's just different. I use different pieces of scrapbook paper and still the same music pages and the same map pages. Another piece of dyed paper with a different stencil. So it's just basically the same kinds of thing with maybe some different variations in the paper. This one has a little bit different paper, but it also has a bag. And then this one just has some craft paper instead of the bag. So there are two with a bag, one with craft paper, and then one with an extra piece of scrapbook paper. So that's how the signatures are looking. So let me just give you an idea of how this is gonna look. So these will be, this is the outer edge. So this will go in this way. We'll just throw them in here so we can see. So from the outer edge, that's how it's gonna look. So you'll have the board book and then you'll have pages. So I'm gonna do these two pages together, and then I'll glue these two and then these two kind of successively. And then once we're done with that, I'm going to glue a binding over the whole thing this way. So I will show you that after the other things are glued together. And I know they're gonna stay. I'll probably have to glue them and clamp them for an hour or two until the glue is good and dry. So that'll be how that works. So let me show you what I'm gonna sew them to. I'm thinking this ribbon. So it's cork, but it's fabric underneath. It's not, so it's like kind of a cork overlay on fabric, and then the ribbon is edged. And so here's my thought. My thought was that I would lay the ribbon down and sew the signatures into the middle of the ribbon like this. So there's a piece sticking out on each side, and then this is what would get glued. So that's the outer edge. So this would get glued to the inner edge here, and then the next one, oops, would get glued to the inner edge this way. So just trying to put those together, you can kind of see. So those would get glued together with this sewn in the middle, and then room to glue here. And then that should get them together. And then this one, I just gotta make sure I can close it. Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm glad I did this because that doesn't close. Oh, good heavens. Okay, time to rethink the binding. All right. So it looks like I'm going to not do it that way. This is how not to do a binding. Okay. Maybe we'll do a Japanese binding. Oh, I just can't believe that there's not enough room for that to go down. Fine on that side, it's this side. That's the problem. Okay, I am going to turn off the video and regroup. And I will be back when I figured out how we're really going to bind it, because apparently my first idea is not going to work. So what not to do is sometimes as valuable as what you should do. All right, so I will be back in a few minutes. Okay, I think I have solved the problem. So I think we're gonna do a Japanese binding instead. And a Japanese binding has about an inch that sticks out, and then you lace through the inch over here, and then it usually would take up space on the paper. Like you would have a cover here, and it would bend from here. So to avoid that problem, I'm going to attach some materials to the edges and then bind through those materials. So after digging through my stash, it seemed like the best option would be to use some vinyl wallpaper samples I have. So this is it's kind of a heavier vinyl, and I feel like it will probably hold up better than any other paper I would use. And I think cardstock might bend a little too much. This is kind of a heavy weight, so I want something that will match the weight and hold up to it. So hopefully this will work. We're gonna try it and see. I don't have enough of any one pattern to do all 9, the 5 board book pieces plus the 4 signatures, but these are coordinating pieces. So I'll cut 5 from one and 4 from the other, and then it will alternate, and that will be on the edge of the binding. So, oops, it will look something, you know, like this, and there'll be a little piece here. I'm having trouble kind of showing you. So there'll be like an inch or so here that will bind through. So let me do 1 or 2, and then I will come back and do one on camera to show you exactly how I'm doing it. And then once they're dry, we can do the binding. So I think that'll work. Hopefully that'll work. You know, art and making is about solving problems, right? It's about looking at what you want to have happen and what you have, and trying to figure out how to get there. So it's a problem solving exercise, and that's what this is. So I am going to do a couple of them, try them out, and then I'll come back and show you how that's working and what we're going to do with it once it's dry. Okay, so I have solved the problem, I think, and this seems to be working pretty well. I've done a couple of them. I'll do one on camera so you can see how it goes, but I've got a couple here that are pretty well dry. I've got a few more to do, but these, you know, I kind of let them dry a little bit so I could take a look at it. So I just wanted to show you how it was going to look. So this is the wallpaper, and I kind of marked, you know, some space in where I wanted to glue, so that when I glued it on, I would know how far. So then it's doubled in half like this, and it just goes down the edges of binding. So this is what it looks like. This is one of the signatures, and you can see we're losing a little bit of that front page, right, as we go. But as we go in, it seems like it's okay. It's still laying pretty flat, right? And when I get to the center where I've sewn it down, it's still pretty flat. It seems like it would be okay still to work in and to write in, to journal in. There's still plenty of room. So we're losing a little bit of the edge, but not too much. It seems like it's still gonna be fine to have space-wise. And so that's the back edge. So you can see we're gonna turn it, so it's gonna kind of bend a little bit here. And this part will be the part we sew together for the binding, for the Japanese binding. So that's why we left some space here. And then this one, still the flip we have, right? And so the binding, it's gonna flip, that'll be part of the binding, and it'll turn this way on top with this in between. So we can still do the flip outs, right? And then the binding will again go along the edge. So you can see right there is the edge of the actual board. And so I've left us plenty of room to do that binding, and we're gonna punch 4 holes and lace it together. I will link a really quick little video that I watched on how to do a Japanese binding. I thought it was very helpful. It was very straightforward, and just showed, you know, punching the holes and how to sew it. So I am going to do that, and I will link that video below. So here's one of my pieces, and on the back of this one I wrote all the measurements and stuff. So the strip I have is 3.5 inches wide, and I've measured about 1/2 inch on each side. That gives me 2.5 inches left. So when I fold that in half, I get about 1.25 inches. We need about 1 inch for the binding, and I want to leave that extra quarter because this is thick and this is thick. So I wanted to make sure that there would be enough room to turn the binding. So I don't want it right up against where we're turning. I want to give it a little space. Okay. All right. So I just kind of creased it a little bit, and I marked here where it's going to go, and then I'm going to mark on this side as well because it just seemed like it was easier. We'll glue and put it down here, and then we'll bend it and put it over. This one got nicked a little bit when I took the book apart. So that's okay. This will cover that edge. So I guess that's a blessing. If you don't have one of these see-through rulers, this is a quilting ruler, and it's really great because you can see all the marks, you can see the angles. Anytime you want to mark something, it makes it much easier. I am using art glitter glue for fabric. It holds paper and fabric both, and so it is a wet glue, but it sticks pretty fast. So I had to hold the pieces for a minute or two while it's set up a little bit, and then I put some clamps on them to let them dry a little before I moved on. But it seems like it's working pretty well. So I just marked the inside of that so I'd kind of know where to put my line. Right. I'm just gonna, you can see where I took a chunk out when I took the book apart. It kind of came apart a little wonky there. So I guess this binding will help even that out, so that's okay. And I've marked my space here. Suppose I could use a brush or something to move the glue around, but sometimes it just seems like your finger works the best, especially when you don't have very much space to do it in. So just want to get that lined up with my line. Seems a little fussy, but I think part of that is because of the vinyl wallpaper. It's pretty heavy, so it takes it a minute or two to stick. And cut this piece quite tall enough, it looks like. Should be okay though. Not quite to the top of my book there. Oh, but I do have it. That's because I'm wrinkling it. The thing about wallpaper though is, it does stretch a little. So when you get that wet glue on it, it's possible I'm stretching it in the wrong way, in the wrong direction. All right, I've got that down. So I'm just gonna put a couple of clamps on the edges. And I'm going to set that aside and let it dry. And I'm going to do all of the pages and all of the inserts. And I will be back when they are all glued together and dried, and we can punch the holes and do the Japanese binding and put it all together. Okay, I'm back to show you how to put it all together. These are all dry. I have punched the holes for the binding in all but one piece, so I thought I'd do that one on camera so you could see what I'm doing. I made a template out of one of the pieces of scrap wallpaper that I had left, and so on my template, I've just measured 1 inch in. Now in the video that I'm linking below, she only punched 4 holes for the binding, but I don't know, it just seemed like not enough to me. This is kind of heavy duty, and it's gonna, have a lot of stuff in it, and I'm gonna be working in it. So I just wanted to punch some extra holes for security, because I feel like if I have more holes, there will be less stress on each individual one. So I measured out some multiple holes here. So I have 7. And I think I worked it out so that it's the over, under, and it's going to work, I hope. I counted it out twice, so hopefully that will do it. So I just made a template. I punched some holes, and then I'm just marking on here. You could use an awl. You could use a heavy-duty needle. You could use a handheld hole punch. This is vinyl, so I didn't really want to use the awl. I don't have a lot of hand strength because of some arthritis issues. So I am going to use my handy dandy crocodile. My husband gave me this a little over a year ago. And I can tell you it is one of the best tools because it has, you know, just the lever, so I can punch holes in things without having to grip things and try to push and that kind of stuff, you know. So if you have some issues with your hands, or if you just punch a lot of holes, this has definitely been worth the investment. I know they're not inexpensive, but they make a great gift. So that's how I got mine. Let's see. I feel like, okay, there's my mark. Let's see. I think I've lost my mark. Okay. So let's grab the rest of these. And this one goes this way. So here I have all of my pieces and the little hole punches too. All of my pieces, and I have punched all of the holes, and I have, so you can see I've got the board book, and then a signature, and then the board book, and a signature, board book, signature, board book, signature, and board book. So I was, you know, thinking originally that I might put a separate cover on this, but the board book seems to be a good cover. And I think it's kind of cool because you'll be able to flip the cover open. So it would be kind of cool to put something here and then do some other stuff inside, and the same thing on the back cover. So I think we're going to have some fun with this. Since we're binding it this way, it's going to be hard to put a cover over it. I had originally, the way I had planned to bind it, I thought I was going to be able to put a binding here and then put it into a cover. But that's okay. There's nothing wrong with doing it this way, and hopefully I will be able to do it correctly. I am going to use some just brown embroidery floss. This is the twisted one, so it looks a little more yarn-like, but it's still pretty much just embroidery floss. It's just not the shiny untwisted stuff. So I'm going to use that. I have already threaded my needle, and in the video she says to cut 5 times the length. Since I added extra holes, I cut like 7, and of course now it's going to be knotted because it's tangled. last one, back up. To here. Okay. That looks pretty good. I can just find where I put them together. There it is. Okay, just gonna tie it. Alrighty, there we go. So I'm thinking this is going to be a lot of fun because we can use this as the cover. Be interesting. Maybe we can tie it with ribbon to keep it shut after we decide what to do with the cover. And then this will flip open. This flips this way. And we've got all kinds of interesting paper to play with. And then we can see the binding and we have the next signature. And so again, we have something to flip, another flip, another signature. So that's, yeah, I think that we may have to fix that even on the inside, although I'm pretty sure this will hold it together on the outside. I think we might want to fix that as we go. So there's another signature of papers. And then another flip out. Another one that was torn that we may want to fix. Another signature of paper. Flip out. Some more papers to play with. And then the final flip out. All right, I think that's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun to play with, I think. Might have gotten a little tight though. I think I'd left us a little room to expand there, so hopefully it won't be too much of a gator mouth by the time we're done with it, but that's how it looks this way. And that's how it looks from the top. Okay. All right, so that's all for this project for now. I will come back and do some decorating and show you some other things with the book later. But that's the end of this video, putting it together. So remember, use what you have to make your life more beautiful. Thanks for joining me. Please hit this like and subscribe button if you found some value here. I hope you have a great day. Bye.